if there's a comfort level to start meeting in person, or if we would prefer to just keep it virtual for now. So maybe at the end of the meeting, if there's a little bit of time, we can talk about that.
Sounds good.
Tim, you're on mute.
That's why no one was responding. I was just going to say we should get started. We have a quorum of 5 members with us here, so let's call the meeting to order. 4:30, and the first item on the agenda is any amendments to the agenda. All right, then we move on to the minutes from February 22nd. This should have been in your packets, and hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at those from that meeting just a few weeks ago. And at this point, I'll be looking for a motion to approve or to amend the minutes.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Was that Dennis?
Dennis, yes, that's Dennis.
Let's all signify approval by saying aye or raising your hand, or both.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are approved. And then we move on to item 4, which is citizens to be heard. And it doesn't appear that we have any citizens to be heard this afternoon. So we'll move on to item 5 on the agenda, the 2021 project discussion. And I would draw your attention once again to the packet of information that was sent out to you last week about the art options here for 2021. And Kim, would you please guide us through this document?
Sure. So as we've been discussing what we should do for 2021 to promote art and culture in Moorhead. And so I provided a background of some of the historic projects that we've accomplished, with last year having the bench and box art in partnership with Moorhead High. And then we reviewed proposals with from the Riverside Lofts. We contributed to the I-94 water tower art and the geocache art adventure downtown, part of Moorhead Days. And then you can see the historic projects further, and they're also available with additional details and photos on the city website. And then I also included the budget. And annually, we have historically been getting $4,000 the last few years, and we have that for 2021. And we also have just a little over $10,000 remaining from the Moorhead Proud donation that was received through the Moorhead Community Fund. And so as we kind of work through some of our different discussions, and some projects are maybe a little bit longer term or have a lot more complexities than other projects that we've been looking at or exploring. So it was thought that maybe issuing a second call for art, similar to what we had done in the end of 2018, early 2019, for some of those projects where we solicit or ask our community artists or arts organizations to give us ideas on how we could spend that money in our community, and then promote their projects with passing on that funding to them for implementation as a suggestion. And we can still continue to talk about the sculpture walk, but again, that's a lot bigger project scope of locations and partnerships. So I guess maybe just to try to see what y'all thought about a second call for art conversation.
I think that's a good idea, and probably a very prudent one at this point. We haven't been particularly active. I mean, obviously, we've done a few things in the last year, but I think it's time to start being a little bit more active in that front. And things are starting to move a little bit now, opening up, and I see that there's, as springtime comes and summer approaches, we know of a lot more programs and events and things that are already in the works for the summer. Obviously, spring construction projects are gearing up, and businesses are anticipating, expanded opportunities to have a public presence. And so I think this would be a good time for us to perhaps issue another call, and what kind of a project call for art would we consider doing at this point? Pretty much, I guess whatever we'd like to do. What are other people thinking here?
Hi, everyone. This is Jeremiah. I would personally like to see us reach out to younger artists and kind of see, and I'm not just talking like high school, but I'm talking middle school, even grade school, and maybe get some input from there, because it's the art I see a lot everywhere is kind of adult themed, I feel, and I would like to see some more younger, fresher minds on some things that we could do around the community.
Okay. Any other ideas here, or response to Jeremiah's suggestion here?
Larry, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm chuckling at myself, so I'm sorry. One of the things is that if we think of some of the buildings around town, and almost like the landlords or the owners, how much do they want to partner? How much do they view the value of having a side of their building painted? I mean, are they willing to, hey, match it, or just say, hey, I'll pick up the whole thing? So, I mean, it's one avenue to maybe just, as we look at buildings, if we're going to look at a building, say, hey, are you interested in how much are you willing to contribute, or you just want us to, do the whole thing? Throw that out.
Yeah, I think, that's also an idea that, may have some good merit when it comes to something as large scale as a sculpture walk, or other forms of public art that may be located on business property or on public property in town. We would like to know, I mean, we do have some partnerships already, and there's been partnerships that have been built over the years with certain individuals and organizations and building owners. But I think that, if there was some way that we can have a survey of businesses, or to have a task force perhaps with a business association, or if there was some way that we could reach out to people that may be interested in being partners that we aren't even aware of. Those are also, good suggestions. And I guess I also think, Jeremiah's thought about reaching a younger audience. Again, that's the future of our community is young, obviously. And the challenge, I think, maybe with that would be, again, finding a method of interacting with young people in a way that is practical and realistic. In other words, to get the information that we're looking for. But that doesn't mean that that can't be done. I'm just thinking we would need to come up with some creative ways to hear the voices of younger people when it comes to decision making in this kind of a situation. Any other thoughts on engaging with artists or with the community here?
Well, I'll chime in one more time here. We have this amphitheater down in kind of seating in Woodlawn Park that I'd like to see music down there, to attract people. And I know that the people that have that, is it River Haven? Is that downtown? Is that the one that the old Red Bear? Is that what it's called, River Haven? And I know Jade Present is a partner on that. And when we toured it, he said, "Hey, I'd be willing to work getting, some music down there." And, I remember attending this open mic outdoor concert downtown Fargo, and I was like, holy mackerel, we got talent, It was pretty impressive. And they just wanted a mic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe at our last meeting, we had Derek Lapointe who discussed and shared some information regarding the downtown plan. He had also mentioned that the EDA had started to put aside some funding for placemaking, I believe. And I believe that they might be working on a plan for that might be unveiled within the next couple months. And so I will see if we can get whoever those folks are who are working on those plans to see if they can come and share with us. Do we want that business collaborative? Do we want to reach out to Sherry Larson and the Moorhead Business Association to see what they have for suggestions? Or do you think that we just want to proceed with forming a call for art and leave it wide open and allow for youth or performing artists? I guess, do we want to leave it really broad? Because I feel like last time we left it really broad, and in some ways I feel like some of the details got lost because they didn't know quite how to focus all of the concepts into action art or, like implemental art. We had big concepts, but a lot of the details weren't quite filtered out by the time we had our deadlines. And so just some thoughts on that as well. Anyone?
Well, this is Jeremiah again. I think, I guess when I'm thinking about art and when I'm really pushing towards the younger generation, is not just also live art, but paintings more specifically. And I like Larry's idea about asking some businesses. I know at least at the south end where I live, some big companies have bought out some small buildings that have been sitting here, and I don't see a reason why some of us couldn't reach out to more businesses, on the main corridors and just ask them, hey, would you mind if we painted part of your building? And kind of like Larry was saying was, would you be interested in donating materials or just the wall? And then from that point, if we got the canvas, so to speak, then we can turn around and get very specific about, okay, let's take this building that's closest to this school and let's go and ask the administrators if we can turn around or if they can see if they have any artists from any grade that would be interested in doing something. We get a couple ideas flowing from the young students, and then that part of the building on that part of the city is going to be painted by that school closest to it. But I think as far as trying to find the canvas that we as members have, a free moment to call a couple buildings that look like good possibilities. And I think we could do it. And then bring that back to the commission on next month and have a little bit better game plan.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's generous of you to be willing to go out and approach folks. That's certainly is, sometimes that's the hardest step to take, is to go and ask someone. And I love the idea of working with close proximity to schools and with schools. I would like to see if, you know, that idea could come to fruition. I think through a process of again, a focused kind of an engagement with businesses that may be a little bit more widespread over the city and not necessarily just in a certain location. And I think it should also include engagement with schools. And you know, as someone who works in the education realm right now, I know that schools and administrators and teachers are completely swamped right now, just trying to keep up with hybrid learning and online learning and kids catching up and social emotional issues and all kinds of stuff that's going on right now. So I hesitate to add anything else to the plate of school people, at least at this point, but you know, we could certainly gear towards a fall kind of an interaction with schools perhaps. And I guess so to kind of to respond to your initial question there, Kim, was do we want to open up something now, a call for art, and see what we get? I think that's a little bit dangerous because we, you know, like you said earlier, you know, if there's not a lot of parameter around it, either you get stuff that's widely varied and not really, it's hard to evaluate and all of that, or you get things that are so finely focused that that doesn't really fit what we're looking for, you know, as far as a project. So what about a couple of the others of you, Dennis and Allison? Do you have some input on this?
Yeah, I like all those ideas. I mean, it's just like you said, it's a matter of getting it figured out. What we're going to do. I don't know if we each go to our own ward and kind of spec it out and see what's in our area that could possibly use, that we could maybe put a list together, and then from there maybe send letters to these businesses or whoever owns the buildings that we could use as a canvas.
I was wondering, you know, and this might open a whole other can of worms, but do we just do a little informal reach out on like the Moorhead Fantastic Facebook page or something and say, hey, what would you like to see? You know, what are your ideas? And, you know, get some input from, you know, the several hundred people that are on that group. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is a way to reach a broader audience for sure, and word of mouth in the wards as well. And I think all of us are connected enough in the community that we do have contacts with people that are only in our areas, but also in, you know, businesses and organizations that we're part of as well. You know, I was just looking through some of the other things that are on the list here in this topic. In the background, the budget, or the long-term projects that we have talked about this idea of a sculpture walk. And you know, that's certainly something that seems to be exciting for all of us, and we did have quite a spirited conversation about that. I think with a lot of good suggestions, but maybe it's time, if we're thinking about this as a long-term project, we need to flesh it out a little bit more, and we need to gather a little bit more information, be a little bit more proactive about connecting with the communities that have done this kind of thing. How did you get started? How did you gather information? How did you decide all of the things that we need to decide at the beginning of the project? What kind of art do we want? How often will it rotate? Where is it going to be? How are we going to pay for it? Who's going to take care of it? And those kinds of questions. I guess maybe now is the time to put together a task force of folks, or just a focus group about trying to answer some of these questions and getting some input specifically about something like this.
Well, I know when this when I got the notice of this meeting, I thought, boy, as time flew. I mean, it just seems like we met, and we all have other things to do, so it's tough to say, oh, I'm gonna spend some little time doing this, but it has to be done. I don't know how much we spent on the wraps. Is this bad, this mic thing? I'm getting feedback.
There's a little feedback, yeah.
Well, I'll see if I'll finish this and then unplug it and use my other mic. Because I was just wondering is if we do another wrap and then we think that's just kind of something to get done, and then look to say, okay, let's get this more detail on the sculpture walk. Let's get some more details on building art or something. But we'll have something to show, and we'll get some kids involved, and we get a little more art around town. Right? That's like a patchwork thing to do now.
So my fear, this is Jeremiah again, my fear is that we all want to reach out to adults to get them to try and relay to their children that we're doing something art. And I have a hard time believing an adult or as many adults are going to relay the message to all the children. That's the reason why I really emphasize behind the schooling system. And I get it. There are administrators and teachers that are feeling very overwhelmed or underwhelmed by the whole everything going back to school and stuff, but there has to be another format that we can try and get the word out as the Arts and Culture Commission, saying, listen, we're asking you to try and be a part of this, because my fear is if we ask adults to try and relay it to, and they're not always going to do it, and we're going to possibly miss out on a bright individual that has an opportunity to show the world their inner beauty, and I don't want to risk that. There has to be another media platform, because our social media page is definitely curtailed for adults only. Our Facebook page is definitely not. We don't have a lot of things that appeal towards the younger generation on there. And I think we as adults on the commission are smart enough to know what is the best avenue to reach the younger generation. And I think we can come up with a better idea than telling the parents, because the parents don't always relay the message.
True, all of that, definitely. And I guess I was hoping that we might take a look back at the arts and culture framework for development that the commissioners and other artists in the community worked on here a few years ago. And Kim did put a link into the packet here today. And that it really was, an opportunity at that time for engagement with the community about a lot of things. And, some of the roadmap that was put together really does help us define a little bit about placemaking, working together, story, identity, implementation, and so on. And I believe that, as we as we refer to this, it does kind of give us the framework for for the direction that we can move at this point. I mean, I don't know if we want to necessarily get bogged down too much in a project at this point, and I really do think that the engagement piece is important here to move forward to the next level. Kim, are we taking this into the area that you were anticipating us going with this?
I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like it's good to talk it through before we move forward if we're not all on board. I feel like whatever direction we go, we should all feel strongly about that direction that we're moving. And if there's some question as to which way we should go, maybe we do need to take a moment to review some of those guiding documents and revisit. It sounds like some sort of engagement might be helpful to help get some community feedback on which direction our community would like to see us. I'm not sure exactly what that would mean or what that would look like. Is that what I'm hearing from y'all? Is that you would like to see maybe a survey to get information, or what direction are we?
I don't know about a survey, but I definitely know that I don't want this to be drawn out for 5 or 6 more meetings before we finally make a decision. That's not what we were appointed to this commission to do. There's enough bureaucracy in other commissions. I certainly want to make decisions. I want to make movements. I want to try to do things. And the problem is, if we met every 2 weeks or weekly, it'd be a little bit different to say, okay, let's table this for the next meeting. But we meet once a month, and I think the longer we wait, the longer we procrastinate, the more we turn around and say, oh, I was too busy to do this. We either need to be involved with this or not be part of the commission, because that's, to me, when I was appointed to this is what being part about it is make decisions. But if everyone needs more information, then let's give more information, but let's do something proactive instead of reactive about the whole situation. And here it is, June or July, before we finally make a decision where we're going, and we've already missed the best months of the opportunity to have great artists to show their pieces.
Well, there would be timing involved. So whatever direction we would choose, we would still need to make sure that city council is on board with the direction we go. So there's going to be an implementation timeline that's going to be slower than what you may imagine, just because of the steps and the involvement. So once we decide what we want to do, we would have to make sure that our recommendation is supported by the city council and that they would be in agreement to whatever direction we would recommend. Then it would take a little bit of time to develop whatever goals that we would need to implement, and the time it would take for artists to develop proposals. I mean, they'll receive it, but it'll still take them some time to vet their project, think it through, work out all the details that they need to develop, and then a review process to consider all of the proposals and then make a recommendation again for city council's approval. So I realize that it might be somewhat challenging, that it's not going to be a quick timeline, but that's the reality of what we do is we work on building consensus, make recommendations for the council's decision too. So I just wanted to remind everyone that I think Jeremiah's excitement to get stuff going is wonderful, but there is a defined process in which our organization, as the Art and Culture Commission, which recommends to City Council for their decision. So.
And I agree. It really has been an extraordinary year, right? I mean, this is, things just have not moved. And now everybody's eager to get stuff going. I know I am. And as we get closer to, springtime and it's getting nice and we can be outside and all that, it seems to be even accelerating. But we have been talking about these things in the last 3 or 4, oh gosh, even since back in October, our monthly meetings, and I think we may have only missed 1 month in there. We have been talking. We did have quite a discussion about long-term projects. We did meet with people who are doing work in the community, the Moorhead Proud group, or the Moorhead. What is it, Dennis? The
Creative Moorhead.
Creative Moorhead, sorry. And Creative Moorhead and, Derek LaPointe and the folks that have been with us at the last few meetings to participate in those and lead those conversations and get us thinking about that. I think that at least there has been some if not tangible progress, certainly a background and a framework for what it is that we really need to be doing. And I mean, I share your excitement, and I share your eagerness to get moving. I would love to see, some kind of a summer festival being put into the works right now, where we could have live art and performances all over the community. I mean, I think that would be really cool. And that was something that we were hoping could have happened last summer until the pandemic came, and now we've just kind of we've had to get past this, and hopefully we're almost in the clear with that. But I guess what I think we should do is either we want to either make a call, a second call for the Moorhead Proud art, and I'm hearing a little bit of enthusiasm for that. I think that was something that was relatively not easy, but it was relatively quick turnaround time. It was engagement with high school students, and it was an opportunity to have a public presentation of art in the community. Again, I just am a little bit cautious about approaching educators with one more thing at this time of the year. Or do we want to say spend a month focusing on conversations, whether they're formal or informal, with either business groups or individuals, property owners, and other interested individuals in the community, to have some conversations with a recommendation for us to consider at our next meeting or the meeting after that.
What were the parameters of the first Moorhead Proud call for art?
Kim?
It was quite open. I think it was just to develop proposals that somebody would think would make our community proud. So it wasn't really guiding anyone to any format or anything. So it could have been a performing arts type of program. It could have been a physical piece of artwork, just something that would make our community proud. And then the submittals were guided by our public art policy items. But I feel like right after we were reviewing all of the spectrum of those proposals, I think that there was a little bit of a sentiment that maybe thought that it would have been better to try to focus those suggested works of art into maybe something a little bit more distinct, because they did vary, and but they were all interesting, and they all had a varying level of implementation within the initial proposal. Like some of them didn't have a location determined, or didn't have all of the design details figured out. So it made it challenging in that regard for the art review team to make some of those recommendations. Does that seem about right, Tim? I think you were involved with the art review team at that time, right?
Yes, I was, and some of those projects actually were completed, like the Klingensmith mural, and was the bench and box art part of that too, or not? No.
No. And we're still waiting for the storm drain art program, because that was supposed to work in collaboration with our neighborhood block clubs.
Right.
To work with those neighborhoods to design, art that would also inform our community on the storm drain, and that those storm drains go right to the river, so they shouldn't pollute and those types of things. But river keepers, just with all of the COVID impacts, have really been having to redesign a little bit how they're going to interact with our community or neighborhoods to get that done. So I believe that they'll be working on that this summer, but I haven't received a firm update on exactly how they're going to do it.
And weren't there a couple of other projects that we did have funding for, but they weren't green lighted completely? Wasn't that there was a sculpture, a soldier or somebody?
Yeah. So the Felix Battles sculpture was defined, but the location wasn't finalized. And then I think because the location wasn't finalized, there were a few questions on how would it get fastened, where would it go, how would it be displayed, because I believe that the sculpture itself was already funded, and so it was. They were requesting funding for some interpretive panels that would kind of support that sculpture, and I feel like there were just a few, or the committee that reviewed it thought that there were just a few more details that needed to get finalized.
Yeah. So there we go with another sculpture, right? I mean, that the whole idea of sculpture in the community, and not having all the answers as far as final placement and all those things that we know we need to decide before we can embark on that. And so that just kind of, again, just highlights that that sculpture walk idea, or the sculpture, whatever we want to call it, sculpture collection or project or whatever. I guess, that's maybe where we want to start is to even if we were to have the conversation about that specific piece that was already in the production shoot here, that if we had made some decisions about that, and wasn't there something about a bench or not a bench, but wasn't there something else that we had funded or that we had approved that was to be done right closer to the river? I thought it was a bench, wasn't it?
I think it was kind of a sculpture / bench, just like a dynamic 3-piece. That was a proposal of the call for art. And again, there were just a few more details of where exactly that was going to be located.
Right.
And I don't know if they had their budget really very firm yet either. It was more of a concept than an actual defined proposal, if I remember right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I know the Felix Battle Monument is going up. So, I mean, I think they figured out a place to put it, so you're going to see that up pretty soon.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't involved. I like the idea of just throwing it out there. I mean, it's like you don't know what you're going to get, but they probably all end up, if you approve it, they're probably a pretty good idea. And is this part of the learning curve? Is like, oh, okay, we did this once, and here's the hiccups, and we can change that and make the second time go around a little smoother.
Yeah.
Can we modify the lingo a little bit on the second call, what we learned on the first call? Tell them they need to have, how we worded these things figured out a little better before they send us their ideas. The placement and the money, and just try to word it somehow from what we learned the first round, the hiccups that we had.
Yeah. Yeah, and go ahead. I thought you were talking about Larry. Okay, so we would still want to have the Moorhead Proud idea be the thematic idea. I mean, the thematic focus would be Moorhead Proud in some way. The piece would exemplify the idea of Moorhead Proud, or be proud of Moorhead, or some artistic interpretation of what that means.
Well, I think if we did Moorhead Proud, was it last year or year before, Kim?
It becomes a little fuzzy when it comes to the implementation, but I think it was 2019.
Okay, so if we do Moorhead Proud again as the title, which is fine and dandy, I don't think there's an issue with that, but I think we should, third annual Moorhead Proud art consultant, we need to turn around and not just go Moorhead Proud, because what people are going to go like, oh, didn't I do that last year? But if we add a numerical value to it, such as the third annual Moorhead Proud, we're looking for art suggestions for the third annual Moorhead Proud, and we essentially could try to start making this a yearly thing, and everyone will start getting the I couldn't make my submission this year, so I'm going to make it next year, and we start doing it. We actually will start getting entries on a regular basis, and therefore we can start making decisions that we need to make, movements we need to make to get the city council involved, everything in the off season where, our winter time, right? But if we add consistency to what we're trying to do here and add numerical value behind it, I think we're going to start seeing within the next 3 to 4 years, people routinely giving us ideas where we're not always having to go out fishing and feel like we're struggling like we are right now.
Well, part of the issue is that was a single donation, the funding for this. And so the previous balance, or the projects previously, were part of that $25,000 donation. And so we only have the $10,000 balance. There isn't enough money in our budget, I don't believe, unless we strategize a little bit larger and then make a recommendation to the city manager. But right now there just isn't funding to have some sort of annual or consistent iteration at this time. Unless we work on promoting donations to the Moorhead Community Fund, that would help supplement the funding for that implementation.
Yeah, I like the idea of the consistency, or maybe we could even, if we were to do something, we could call it, Moorhead Proud again, or still Moorhead Proud, or Moorhead Proud 2, or have some clever way that people will be able to connect it to the previous one. Even if it was something that someone wanted to continue in the future, there would be a way to have a thread of consistency through that on a yearly basis, or however often.
Do we have any successful proposals that we could put in a file, an electronic file that people could look at and go, those are all the pieces of the puzzle that I have to include to be, to submit a full proposal?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in the actual call that I don't know if we had specific examples in there last time, but but that certainly is possible to have, pretty descriptive wording and ideas for people, while still leaving it a little bit open to interpretation. So I'm hearing that there's some consensus here on perhaps moving forward with a second call for a Moorhead Proud Art project or program in the coming months, and that we, we do have a designated budget that remains for that. And we do have a process in place that worked well last time. And yes, we have learned from some of the glitches that we had on the first round of it, and perhaps that's we can iron that out as we move forward to get something done here in the coming months. Does that seem like a summary of our last few minutes of conversation here? Is there a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to issue a second Moorhead Proud call for art. Do we need to put any parameters on that, Kim?
Maybe I would ask if there would be someone or any volunteers who would like to help shape what that looks like. So I would envision that at our next meeting, we would come with a draft for the group to review prior and have a conversation to see where we can maybe make any improvements before we make that formal recommendation to City Council. And so we would develop what that call for art would look like at our next meeting, or finalize that, and then it would go to the following City Council meeting after we would get something reviewed by this group. So I don't know if there's anyone who would be interested in helping review or shape what that would be, or what some of those parameters could look like.
I can give it a try.
Okay.
All right. Great. Thanks, Dennis. So we have a motion and a second to move forward with a second Moorhead Proud call for art with a draft proposal for the call by our April commission meeting.
Can
Yeah, Larry.
The subgroup, and I mean, I have faith in you guys. I mean, it's like, go ahead. I mean, because I was just looking at the council meetings. It's, we meet on the 22nd. We always meet on the 2nd and the 4th. So you're looking at the end of April. And if you can come up with a proposal and we can approve it at the beginning of April then. So, I mean, my faith is in you guys that, send me a copy, and if I don't like it, I'll make a comment. Otherwise, it's good to go. That's my feeling.
Well, I appreciate your trust. Yeah, so, I don't know if that's possible to be able to put something together that we'd have to approve something at our next meeting, right? I mean, before we can move it to the council. So, and I think it does need to have some review, definitely. I mean, if it doesn't come out till the end of April, well, I mean, then will it get done in the summer? Maybe, maybe not, but it could, I suppose. We could set up a relatively brief time to respond, right? Or to submit a proposal. I mean, could we do that in a month? If we say it's approved by the end of April, if we put it off the end of April, is it something that could we close at the end of May?
I think we could. I mean, the last thing you want to give artists is time to fester over it.
Yeah, true.
I think if we give it that month notice, that's enough time for people to get the information and also enough time for them to put together, I believe.
So we would have, so say if we approved it, if the council approves it by the end of April, we put out the call, and we would need to have the art review team meet prior to recommending to the commission, right, before we could move ahead with anything, and then that would have to be approved by the council, correct? Kim, is that so it might be into June before we could actually award the grant. Well,
but I think it would work because we've had a whole year where artists haven't been able to get their stuff out there. So therefore, I think there's artists waiting to get their stuff out. Like, they're ready to go. They just need to be told to go. So I don't think it's going to be that far of a stretch that we think it is. I think there's people ready to go with ideas, submit things. I think it's anything that's going to slow it down, it's going to be commissions, the council. We're the ones going to be slowing it.
Right. Okay. So, so we have a motion and we have a second to get this going, and you have a draft that we can vote on by the next commission meeting in April, and then we'll move it through the process as quickly as feasible. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. So, Kim, I also would be willing to be in a conversation with you and Dennis about putting something together prior to our next meeting. So, just reach out to us and we'll find a time that we could meet.
Super. Thank you so much.
Great.
This is Jeremiah. I'm also available.
Great. Wonderful. The more eyes on that, the better.
Well, I think you still have to follow the open meeting laws. If you get 4, you have a quorum. That would be illegal.
Yep.
I was
just about to say that. I thought you were going to volunteer too, Larry.
No.
Okay, so we're good at 3 plus Kim?
Right.
Okay. The volunteers are closed. Sorry, Allison. Larry, you can't do it this time. Okay. Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't need to do it either, but I just thought I was around for the first one too, and so. Okay. The next item here is member reports and updates. Before we adjourn today, are there any reports and updates that anybody would like to share? Well, not a lot going on artistically in the community in this coming month, it doesn't sound like. All right, nobody has any updates to share today, which is fine. Then if there's no further business here, and I don't think we have anything else on the agenda, then...
This is Jeremiah. There was one more thing that Kim and I kind of mentioned that I was going to ask everybody is, I asked Kim earlier in the meeting before the meeting started if we're allowed to start meeting face-to-face, and she did say that there is a space set up to give us proper distancing, and I'm very much interested in meeting face-to-face for these meetings. If everybody else is, I think it's something that we should have a conversation about.
Right. Thank you for remembering to bring that up. Any opinions on that, about meeting in person next month?
Well, the city council has that same option, and Matt Gilbertson and I are about the only ones that show up. People are preferring to stay, doing it video, and so it's even if it's available, it's still like to the council. You can, if you don't want to show up, you can do it from home or wherever. So that's, it's there if you wanted to.
So some are doing it. So what, you're still having the meetings and some are there virtually?
The majority are staying at home.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we decided, I mean, I think, Kim, they could set it up that if you wanted to go down to the MCOMs, you would find yourself socially distanced. But right now, they're not forcing anybody to show up. So if you wanted to do it from home, you could do it. So it's not that much is gained because you're still not looking face to face a lot of times. So.
Right. Any thoughts on that, Dennis, Allison?
I'm open to either, so,
I would be too. So.
So, I mean, I'll go to the MCOMs if that's where the meeting is and we're going to be there. Or if it's only going to be a couple of us, then I guess we keep doing it this way.
Well, I think we set it up as a personal decision kind of a thing. Then I guess we would like to see everybody that's comfortable attending in person. And another month from now, we may all feel differently, or we all may want to stay home. So can we set it up that way, Kim, that people have the option?
I believe so. I'll have to check with our IT to see if there are any other meeting details that would need to be thought through, but I will pass that along if there are any. But it should be set up like Larry said, with as an example for the council meetings for both options.
Okay. All right. And that'll be our plan for the next meeting, which is April 19th? Okay. All right. Any other things that we missed here today? If not, I thank you for your time and service today. And this meeting is adjourned at 5:26. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, God, that's right.